The organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses never ceases to surprise me. This wonderful person, Cheyanne Summers, had to change her last name, in fact. The effects of this entire organization has had on her are shocking. I hope you guys take a deep dive into her own personal life and see if you can relate. Maybe you are an ex-Jehovah's Witness and you can see that. Or maybe you're currently a Jehovah's Witness and you're looking at this trying to see, is this me as well? I know there's a large fear of people wanting to leave. There's always that fear of like, what then? They always scare you that the outside world is so bad. Not from my own experience and not Cheyenne's either. I hope you like this video. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. You guys can join our Patreon if you want to help support what we're doing at MythVision, or a one-time donation at PayPal. All right, guys. We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. Your host, Eric Lambert. Today, we're talking to another ex-Jehovah's Witness, Cheyanne Summers. And I'm really excited to bring her on here and let you hear her story. I just want to really open up the door for a lot of people. There's already a bunch of ex-JW activists out there that are obviously explaining how this cult is a high control cult that wants to separate families and keep you in the mindset of this is how things should be believed and understood. And you guys get to peek into the inside of the mind and the life of someone who actually has made it out, and they're happier that way. Welcome to the show, Cheyanne.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. I must burst the bubble and tell everybody that we recorded this already.
Yes.
And it didn't, the quality really jacked up. I mean, like really bad.
Which is such a bummer because we had such a good conversation, but it'll be great this time too.
Yeah. Now you know like what we're going to talk about. So I need to ask some fundamental things that I already know, but I want them to find out. And that is, were you born into the Jehovah's Witness religion? And how did that happen? Like, let's get a little background before we get into some of the deep stuff. So your parents, fill me in.
Yeah, for sure. So my parents met while they were in the organization. So both sides of the family had already been in. So I was born in along with my sister. Yeah.
Okay. Mom and dad, how did they get in?
So they had been, at least my dad, he was a little bit of a child when his parents were taught the truth. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents were also brought in. So they were not born in. So I believe that makes me a third generation witness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore, but
not anymore. Yeah.
So yeah, if you have kids one day, they're not going to have to be exposed to this type of thing from birth.
Absolutely.
How serious were you guys about the religion? I mean, it seems like you were serious enough that you guys were part of it, but not ridiculously brainwashed to the level that you're pioneering and like overly involved into this organization, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, serious enough to where, not doing holidays, not doing sports, not hanging out too much with kids from school, that sort of thing. My sister was a pioneer, however. She dropped out of school, or not dropped out, but she switched over to homeschooling when she was like a sophomore, junior. And when I asked her why, she was like, well, I know that if I had stayed in school, I probably wouldn't have stayed a witness. And so then she got married a little bit later. Her and her husband are very devout and take it very seriously.
Where does that put you with her? I mean,
I haven't talked to her in a couple of years. It was actually, that's the whole thing. But she tried to be as supportive, I think, for as long as she could until there came a point where she had to cut the cord.
So, wow. I didn't know that. See, going through a second show reveals things you didn't know. Wow, this thing's really damaged a lot of the relationships that you had with your family. And I guess I'm saying that as someone who knows something you don't, but this is something I need to probe is, before you found out the truth about the truth. And I love that that statement is so cool, like to have that kind of thing. Yeah. So your parents, I mean, did they go to Kingdom Hall every weekend? I mean, you guys went like religiously and strictly to the Kingdom Hall?
Pretty religiously, like on a Sunday, sometimes like for football, Dad would go maybe to a different meeting so he could make football time, which wasn't.
You broke out. Can you hear me? There you go.
Are we back?
Yeah, I think Satan's trying to, interject.
Really trying to get in our way, huh?
Yeah, gotta bind you. Okay. Yeah, please continue. I apologize.
Where was I?
You were saying your dad used to sneak off to other meetings and then he would go to the football, but you guys, it was a different thing.
Yeah, so like he played Halo. We went to Disney World. We had a really great childhood. It wasn't overly strict by any means. I had friends from school, that I like talked to or emailed, or, kids in my neighborhood I would ride bikes with. It wasn't as strict, but then as you get older, kind of in those teenage years, it becomes way more social expectations of, will my friends stop hanging out with me if I don't get baptized, that sort of thing. And that's when you kind of decide to be more serious about it.
You were baptized, right?
I was. I think I was 16. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you said something, and I want everybody to know that you were in Mexico living with your dad?
No, I was there on my own.
So we didn't cover this. Tell me, how did that end up happening? How did you end up in Mexico?
I was kind of sick of my congregation here. I wanted to travel. And so I grew up with a family in my dad's congregation that had moved out there years ago. And my sister kind of encouraged me to reach out to them, see what we can make happen. I flew out maybe a month or two later. Then I started teaching English online, what a lot of JW missionaries or pioneers do. You teach English like online to kids in China, something you can do abroad. So I started doing that, and then I ended up being there on and off for about 2.5 years.
Did you speak Spanish like fluently?
Muy poquito.
Okay, so was that odd being in a Spanish congregation?
So I was actually in the English congregation.
Okay.
So we would go out and try to talk to expats that had also moved to Mexico from Europe, Canada, US, wherever. Yeah. So I was in the English congregation. So people from all over were there.
Wow. So you we mentioned this prior, pioneering. I mean, were you called something like it? And what does that mean?
So I was an auxiliary pioneer, which I got a lot of crap for because I never really wanted to commit to 80 hours a month.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, I don't know. I just knew in the back of my head that I never wanted to do that. So instead I became like an auxiliary pioneer, and I would tell people with the hopes of becoming a pioneer, like kind of adjusting my life to the schedule. But even still, auxiliary pioneering is 40 hours a week.
So this is,
60 a month almost. Yeah. Too.
This is interesting because the hours that are documented by this organization are full of it. I mean, you're a perfect example of a normal person who is like, look, I want to look good for the organization. I want to look good for the church. But every ex-JW I've talked to, and there's some serious ones like Lloyd Evans and Fifth and JT and Lady C. These are like YouTube well-known names.
Being an elder, going through all that, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, did you ever convert anybody while pioneering? And did you enjoy it? None of them enjoyed pioneering. And then secondly, like they never converted anyone. The only people they ever influenced is already family members that were born into a Jehovah's Witness household, which tells me, and I mean, look, I need more numbers to work off here, statistically speaking, but it tells me that people are probably fabricating more hours than we're letting on, For sure.
I mean, I'll admit I did that, when you don't want to get in trouble or talk to about it. It's just like, sure, I wrote, or you write letters. A lot of people count their time writing letters, and it's a way for them not to face-to-face contact people, which a lot of witnesses don't want to do, or maybe they have anxiety, or anything could happen to where that's not something they want to do. But the organization relevance connects their time that they devote to their salvation and whether or not they're going to make it to paradise, or what that looks like for them.
Okay, so that's it's very interesting how their
Yeah.
salvation is connected to the organization like this. They don't teach hell; they teach a different
No.
form of it.
Yeah, just like
It's
it's not hell,
here.
you just simply won't exist. So the earth essentially will be turned into a paradise for all of Jehovah's servants. And then everyone else who doesn't repent or start praising him will just simply not exist.
Oh, damn!
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make it. I'm just kidding. So this brings me to the question: about what age did you start doubting, or at least that you can recall? Because it's very difficult. Sometimes it's not a shocker remembering thing. It's
Yeah.
like a small, subtle. I'm not happy, and then it's I don't like that, and
It
then
grows.
something grows. Yeah. So can you recall when you recall, like, you actually remember doubting?
I mean, since I was a kid, when I was really young, like in elementary school, it just automatically sets you up to be separate and viewed as different. And so definitely in elementary school, hated it. I didn't really know I'm super young. I don't know anything about religion or how to defend it or how to look up these things. Is this true? What am I being taught? You don't have that capacity at like 7 years old, or most people don't. And then middle school, high school, I kind of start conforming. Okay, well, I have to work with what I got, essentially, of how I can make my life better for myself until I get older and I can see for myself. And so when I was about 19, I came across a YouTube channel called Mark Cora. They are a couple from the UK, very, they do a lot, JW activists, apostates, as to where I came across a video of Cora talking about her just fellowshipping experience with her family and how they treated her. And that was probably 3 to 4 years before I had left. And so watching that video just like pulled at my heart, and I just got into a deep hole of digging and watching these videos that I knew that I shouldn't be watching, as maybe some witnesses in right now are watching this video, right?
Yeah.
And you can't help it because a little bit of your mind is curious of what they have to say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can totally relate, because I felt that way when I started studying things that were contrary to apologetics. Apologetics is like to give and not to apologize. It's to give a defense of why you believe. And Christian apologetics is what I was big into. And I really didn't study and learn from the opposition, the atheists that were arguing, or the skeptics, or the critical scholars, or any of that. I did not feel comfortable, because of my faith, which is my belief in Jesus. That was a like very sacred thing that I couldn't. It was like, no, you don't do that. And then when I would hear stuff like that, I would hear it with the ears of like, he's already wrong. In what way can we prove him wrong? That was like my mindset. So you didn't have that mentality though as a JW. Like, my question is this: I think you probably did at some points, but did you have to pretend to live two lives? I mean, it sounds like you wanted your normal life, and you saw that in the public school. You saw that in your normal go around and see people, and you're like, oh, this is normal. And then you had your JW life. How did did they not like?
To be honest, as a teenager in high school, I wasn't hanging out with the kids in school a lot. I wasn't involved in anything. I wasn't allowed to be involved in anything. And I met a really cool group. My sister kind of took me into her friend group. And that's when I really started believing it, I guess, because it became my life and my social life. And then, after that, it was kind of a rough road. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that rough road in case anyone's wondering. I need to know, right? Because that's there's something weird as I researched all of these ideas, and in my own experience, going from staunch believer, I am in it, I like it, I am what is it? What is the lingo for the I'm in and physically in and
POMO.
mentally in?
POMO. POMO.
Isn't that physically in and mentally in?
PME, yeah. To where you're just like a full believer. And really a lot of people too are physically in, mentally out. of people that are in the religion. They kind of want to leave. They have a feeling there's something else that they should be doing, that life is taking them somewhere else, but they just don't know how to get out of it physically, which is a huge bummer. It's just so sad for so many people.
It's how it's set up, though.
Yeah, it's very strategically built. And I mean, it's smart. They did their job correctly by keeping people in. And they use that new light scripture to change any doctrine they want at any point in time. And it's smart. It's messed up, but it's smart.
Were you a believer when, let me ask you this as a believer, because the apocalyptic stuff really catches my attention.
Yeah.
I got big into studying like the end of time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, like,
and you and I talked about having like nightmares a little bit
yes,
of like apocalyptic situations. And I remember them so vividly that I had like a decade ago, which is crazy.
Same.
It sticks with you really well. Yeah.
Same. Did any of the failed, like, did anyone come across you while you were still a POMO, complete believer, and say, you know that there's a lot of failed predictions by the Jehovah's Witnesses? Did that ever ring? Like, did you ever hear it and just block it off and say, I'm not listening to it?
I don't think I ever met anyone out in the ministry, like the door-to-door work, that told me about that. But it was other people that, like a man out in Vegas, I was doing service there, and he handed me a scripture or a Post-it note with a scripture on it as soon as he opened the door, with like Revelation 22:18, I believe that's what it is. And it says, like, anyone adding to these things is a sign of a false prophet. And I totally understood what he was like trying to tell me. But no one else did. No one else in the car group or, you know, the person I was with at the door understood. So I'm like, you know what? And little seeds like that are what made me do more research and question a lot more and kind of dive into the truth about the truth.
So as you're researching, you're young. How old are you when you started to actually seriously, did you even do a deep investigation and try to say, yeah, there's some problems with this organization? Or was it more on the emotional stuff? Like it was, the way that, go ahead.
Yeah. It was right before I turned 19, I remember, because I was going on a trip with my cousin to Mexico. This is before I moved there. We went on a trip and we were looking on Facebook for like to connect with other witnesses, because sometimes that's just something you do. Like, hey, I'm going to be coming to your congregation at this time. Because also when you're on vacation, you try to go to meetings, which is...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like you never get away from it. And that's where I came across the Mark Cora video, and that spiraled me. So it was just a big roller coaster of me going down these deep, dark secrets, Watchtower secrets, writing down notes in a notebook, and then talking myself out of it, of being like, you are in no position to be questioning this or leaving. Like, you just can't right now. And I think that was just subconsciously telling me, like, just give it more time, wait, now is not the time to do it. And of course, there's always the argument, you know, there is no right time. I strongly disagree with that when it comes to leaving behind your whole life and how you do that, because you need to set yourself up for success, because if you don't, you're going to fail just like Watchtower wants you to. And you really have to plan that. You have to plan your exit. And that's what I did. And it kind of, I mean, it accumulated over the 3 or 4 years of just kind of going in these deep rabbit holes, watching conflicting scripture, YouTube videos. YouTube was definitely my go-to research, Lloyd Evans, all of that. And it all made an impact. It just kind of built up over time to give me the confidence to put it into action.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This whole thing is very interesting, because I do think there's a deconversion phase that's healthy. It's like a healthy way of you know, transitioning from POMO, I'm gonna use your language, POMO, and then completely out. There's a phase I think is comfortable and safe. You know, someone asked me, Derek, since you're an atheist, do you want everyone in the world to be an atheist? You know, they asked me this. So like, if you could snap your finger and just right now, as everyone is, they went from a hardcore believer to boom, atheist, would you do it? And I was like, hell no. Like, can you imagine there's a psychological and an emotional fulfillment that religion gives, and more than that,
absolutely.
But there's a fulfillment that they give you. You got to find life outside of it to realize it is livable apart from needing this thing that was everything to you. And this system, this organization, for example, the Jehovah's Witness, there's got to be a safer transition. And I think the community such as yourself and others that are in the XJW community, you guys can be that transition. You guys are that transition that people can come to and go, oh my gosh, your video was great. Comment down below. And by the way, if you didn't know this yet, I might have butchered. She has a YouTube channel. So if you aren't aware of her YouTube channel, make sure you go subscribe. Of course, like the content. It helps it grow. Leave a positive remark and like her videos. That's what helps YouTube say, hey, I think I'm going to promote this channel. I think I'm going to make this channel grow. So make sure you guys do that. Cheyanne, we covered a lot of material before, and it was in various ways. So I want to go through your deconversion phase, but while we're going through that, we have to remember, what's mom thinking? Where's mom in this? Where's dad? What's dad thinking? Where's dad in this? Your mom and dad aren't together anymore. So what, can you take us through, as you're going out, the talks you may have had with your mom? Because she might have known that this was happening, or you might have approached her about it, I suspect.
What's really funny, so just long story short, I guess I dislocated my knee while I was in Mexico. And so I flew back to the States. I had braces on, everything. I got braces in Mexico. I was full on living there, and I fly back with a bad knee. I can't drive for a month. I'm just kind of sitting in my bed. I start to get better. My dad comes in my room, and he's like, hey, are you going to go to meeting today? I was like, no, I don't think so. And during that month period of being in my bed is when I started getting back into the habit of doing the research, watching YouTube videos, watching my XJW story, things like that. And I just put my foot down of okay, I'm not going anymore. I need to put it to an end. And he's a very patient, quiet person. So I was not expecting him to be and he said, this is my house, and as long as you live under my roof, you go to meeting. And my father never said anything like that to me before.
Wow.
So I kind of went into panic mode, and I went to meeting that day, and that was the last time I ever went to a meeting. And I came home, and I started looking at apartments. So anyway, throughout those months, I told them hey, I don't want to go to meeting right now, and I know what that means for me, of you maybe not wanting me in the house. I'm looking at places, and my dad, he knew I was dead broke. I just came back from Mexico. I hadn't been working in the States. I had a beat up car, whatever. So he gave me a few months to kind of process what I was going through, to see if it was a phase, to see if I would get out of it.
He was hoping it was. Yeah.
He was hoping it was. And then about 4 or 5 months go by. Nothing had changed. Right. We were in their room one night, and it was just so sad. My dad and my stepmom are who I primarily lived with. And my stepmom just had tears in her eyes and just looked at me and was like, don't you want to be in paradise with us? Don't you want to be there? We want you there. And it was just so sad because she truly believes that in her heart. And, I just said, if you are right, then that just means I simply won't exist. I'm not going to be suffering anywhere. I just simply won't exist if God sees fit that I shouldn't be there. And then we all hugged, and it was really sad, and I quietly moved out about a week or two later.
That's awkward.
And what's really funny? I have to point this out. I met up with my mom at Panera, and she knew I hadn't been going to meetings, whatever. And she's like, and I told her that I wasn't going to go to meetings anymore. And she's like, you know what? I thought you were going to tell me one of 3 things. Either that you didn't want to be a witness anymore, that you were a lesbian, or that you were moving out of the country. And I'm like, oh my God, you are so crazy. And it's so funny, the rumors that spread about you when you leave. I went to Pride for the first time after I left. And the first girlfriend that I ever made after being a witness, I met her on Bumble BFF. Great way to meet friends in modern day. Russian Jewish goddess, loved her very much. Anyway, it was rumored that she was my girlfriend. That's why I was at Pride. Things spiral. And that I was part of a satanic cult, or that I made a pact with people. And just so many different rumors going around. And yeah.
It's so weird. That's so superstitious and strange. I get
It
that
is,
crap all
yeah.
the time. People who comment on my channel, you would be so.
I'm sure they're very interesting.
You know the crap that I'm into and that I study, man. They're like the Illuminati, and I'm like, look, if I'm working for the Illuminati, they better start paying me soon because they've been missing out on paychecks for a good while now, and I'm really upset. Illuminati, reach out.
They're stacked up somewhere.
It's so funny that you actually bring that up because there was one day, you know how Facebook will tell you jobs are hiring near you?
Yeah.
Illuminati. I'm not even kidding you. Said hiring
jobs.
Near you on Facebook jobs, and it's just a joke or something. It is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get the whole. The reason why is they're very superstitious. They believe that spirits and powers, things like that, play a huge role and influence on your lives.
Absolutely. They think I just probably have like the devil inside of me or something. And growing up too, they scare you with demon stories, whatever. And to me, to this day, I still get spooked. Like I would never do a Ouija board just because like that stuff, it still spooks me. And like I have a lot of atheist friends too as well when I left. And it was like the first atheist that I'd ever been friends with. And they're like, I'm like, okay, so you don't believe in God. I get that. But do you believe in like demons and stuff? And they're like, well, like I feel like I've had experiences. And I'm like, see, how do you explain that? But now it's just like there's so much more to life and to things going on in the world. And as a witness, it's very black and white. And it's just interesting talking to people that have such a variety of beliefs or views or experiences that you can put together.
So growing up, let me ask you this. This is great. I love where your head's at now, especially I can't imagine the struggle when they're telling you to stay away, don't do that, don't do this. And you're like, curiosity is making you peaked and you're wanting to know more. Were there strange, superstitious type stuff? Like I had Ashley on the last interview that I did. She was talking about Smurfs were like a weird, like don't watch Smurfs type thing. Is there stuff like that or anything that like spiritually demons or holidays carry demons around, or like in Halloween, really spirits really do start coming out and stuff, or what?
I don't know if they really believe that about Halloween. I think that the witnesses believe that it can attract demons maybe on Halloween, but they're not as suspicious. I think it also depends on country. Like I think maybe witnesses in Mexico or witnesses in, different parts of the world kind of vary on those things. I know they vary on politics, and I know they vary on several issues, but they don't know that they all vary on those things. They think it's all unified, but it's not. And being a missionary really proved that to me. But like I did watch the Smurf movie, but like we never owned like Smurfs. We did have a couple troll dolls.
No
like, as
way.
Kids, but like I think eventually they threw them out, but my parents, like they loved Disney. They loved the cartoon stuff, like Star Wars. My dad played Halo, things like that, to where some witness families, they don't play video games. They don't watch Disney movies. Things like that. But my family was pretty chill growing up. And then, my dad was never an elder. He was never had those duties or responsibilities, I guess. And I kind of think that let our family kind of be a little bit more calm than others, because we didn't have to set some sort of example.
Right. So they were kind of a chill family for JWs. Are they still in?
Yes, they are.
Both?
I think what's interesting, both my dad and my stepmom and my mom.
Okay.
And what's really funny is that me leaving made their faith stronger, is what I'm pretty sure they've all told me. It was like, it's me testing them essentially, or Satan's testing their faith.
Yep.
And it makes me sad, but it is what it is,
Look, I could, it's funny you say that, because if I challenge like a regular, Christian on certain topics, or I try to give them evidence contrary to what they once believed to try and convince them, look, you're probably looking at this wrong, buddy. They will walk away even deeper ingrained into their faith, because I feel like anything they've been ingrained in their minds that if they leave, they they didn't actually pass the test and that they're going to be subject to punishment or something's not going to go right. But if they stay and they dig deeper, there's like a fear. They're afraid, I think, of what that world out there is like. And
absolutely. Yeah. My mom, she got disfellowshipped when she was my age that I am now, but she had 2 kids, me and my sister at the time. Divorced my dad, whole thing, but she was not set up for success. She had no life outside the organization. She got herself into bad situations. And so she really didn't want that for me when I was leaving.
Right.
Which I'm not technically disfellowshipped because I never met with the elders. They called me constantly. And I never responded because I know that I was just giving them the satisfaction to officially shun me. And I just kind of stepped back on my own and quit cold turkey. But the thing is, you have to set yourself up for success. And if you don't do that, you're going to go back ultimately to Watchtower, and that's what they want, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So
have you bumped into anybody you know that's JW, like in your area? Because you live there, right? In the same area?
So I'm from Indianapolis.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. I live out in Colorado now.
Okay.
So I've been out here for a little bit over a year. I did run into a couple people when I went back to my hometown. I think I went to go get food one day, and I ran into somebody at my my dad and stepmom's congregation, and she was very lovely. She's like an elder's wife, very nice to me. But her husband did not make eye contact, didn't look at me, didn't say anything. And she was just like, "Hi, I hope you're doing well." Very short and sweet. Other than
That's
that,
funny.
I've almost run into them like downtown on their cart while I was on a couple dates. And it's nerve wracking, because it's like, I felt like I was doing something wrong when I wasn't, but yeah. So I haven't really run into too many people, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel a weird feeling when I'm around them.
So how does it feel working for Satan? I'm just kidding.
Very rewarding.
I'm just teasing. No, I just figured I'd be silly. So what about your mom? Because you mentioned your stepmom and your dad.
Yeah.
What about your mom? The conversations with her, how have they been? She's disfellowshipped, you said? But does she go to meetings?
She was a long time ago when she divorced my dad. She got back in probably a couple years after that and has been in ever since. Again, like she hasn't been very active in it her time as long as we were growing up. Like we went to meetings, our stepdad wasn't a witness, so there's like a weird family dynamic. But but her family is the whole family's in, like aunts, uncles, cousins. That whole side is what's really strong in the organization, and they are all in it. And that was the side of the family I was closest to, even though I lived with my dad. So I think that has a big thing to do with it, of like family being number one. Because I was very family's number one before anything, before I left. And then I left and I'm like, only like one aunt reached out to me when I was leaving. Like only one cousin really cared, and the other ones were pretty young, but still it was hard. Yeah.
Dude, this organization never ceases.
Yeah.
It never ceases.
Yeah. It's just crazy when you're a kid, you don't imagine your family splitting up or not being able to talk to them. And this weekend is actually my grandparents' like 55th wedding anniversary. And so every year, ever since I was a baby, like you get together every year and we have a great party. And the year I left, it was the first year that they didn't do anything. Kind of making me feel like I was putting a rift in the whole family.
Did you feel that way for a while at first? Like maybe I made the bad decision. Just saying, looking back, hindsight 2020, but it's
right.
Were you thinking I messed up? I really did. I should have stayed in the organization to make them all happy. You had to choose between family and happiness. Like there's like I don't know.
Yeah. Before I left, I was thinking, I should wait until my grandparents die and then I can leave, because then I won't feel the guiltiness, because I visited them every week. I love them very much, but I'm like, I can't do that. That's crazy. Like, I'm not going to wait who knows how long and then make it harder on myself, being older than leaving. So, but I think I set myself up correctly enough and slowly enough in my process that worked for me to where I never really regretted my decision. I missed my family dearly, but I was having such a great time, and I felt a lot of support from girls I went to school with, from people I met at the church I was going to at the time, that sort of thing. And so all of that support kind of really helped the hard time I was going through. And I'm glad I had that time before I moved out to Colorado. And I kind of feel more like I can restart wherever.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. This is I'm really glad that you've made it to the other side, coming from that kind of cult. Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if your parents would have stayed together, if they were more devout, if your dad was like more serious about it and stuff, like what would have happened? Because you were already kind of serious. And going to Mexico, that's a big freaking choice that you made to do. So
yeah. Well, and they knew I wanted to travel too. Like that was my big incentive to not going to college, because I really wanted to go. But I really wanted the experience of it too. I was super into like the 90s college movies, stuff like that. I was obsessed with the idea of going. And so the incentive, like my graduation gift was a one-way ticket to Dominican for a couple weeks. And I ended up staying a little bit longer. And that's when I kind of got into the missionary mindset of like, oh, I can have God and travel and have experiences. And little did they know that kind of opened the gateway to the openness I have now with my mind, and just I can become and evolve however I see fit.
I think if you'd have gone to college, though, it'd probably happened quicker, because you know how college is. Yeah. But I don't know what it would have worked into the hands of the JWs, because the way they portray it is out there in the world, all the lust and the this and the that, and you're going to end up falling in a trap. And in college, we got to admit that there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of partying, there's a lot of, hooking up and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it would just fit right into that glove of them going, see, we told you. And it's like, what the heck,
Yeah. And I didn't want to get them that satisfaction since the beginning of me leaving. I was like, no, like I'm not letting you. That's why. So like on my Instagram, my YouTube, Facebook, like all of that is public, because when I first left, I'm like, man, like I should go private, because I don't want them looking at my stuff, because witnesses are very chatty and invasive. But then I was thinking, if I do that, then I'm just giving them more control over my life and my decisions and what I'm doing. And I'm not going to let that happen. So I'm sure now there's tons of talk, but I've gotten a lot of messages from witnesses still in, or witnesses in, that are mentally out. They're like, I see that you're happier. I see that you're living your life, and I'm very happy for you. And others have blocked me. It is what it is. But
that's going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
So that nose ring that you have.
Oh, yeah. That started it all, actually.
and I think, was it on one side? Did you get both sides pierced?
No, just one side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you, you know how the JWs think about that. At least the strict religious ones are going to look and say, see, haha, yeah, you're a naughty girl. But the ones who are not as strict and not as intense and drinking the Kool-Aid, as I like to call, they're kind of mentally looking out, but they're in still. They're like, what's over the wall there? Tell me about this COVID scenario that you were telling me about earlier. How does that play a role? That was interesting.
Yeah, so I've just noticed with witnesses that I was really good friends with, like they've been dyeing their hair, or just witnesses in general have been dyeing their hair, getting temporary piercings, the boys growing beards. And they're doing that because they don't have to go to in-person meetings because of COVID right now. It's all over Zoom. And you don't have to show your face as long as you're there, kind of thing. I believe that's how it's working. And so it's just so funny watching these people of like how they would actually be and how they feel on the inside if they were able to express it, if it wasn't condoned by being a witness.
So they're screaming, I want to do these things.
Yeah.
But going to that meeting every week doesn't give me enough time to have a chin strap. It doesn't give me enough time to put a piercing in and then not see a hole left over. It doesn't give me enough time to dye my hair back before this Sunday. And they'll dye it as long as they're not they're trying to keep it something they can do. I
Absolutely.
can't imagine how much damage has been done from COVID on this organization that they haven't been able to document yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
They probably lost so many people at this point.
And the thing is, I'm probably included in their numbers of members because I haven't written my letter yet to New York. And the reason I haven't done that is because my boyfriend, his father is an elder as a witness, and kind of threatened me of just saying, if you do that, we're not going to be able to talk to you. And so it's just kind of a hard, my decision affects him. It's hard. And yeah.
What's he think? This is so good. I'm so glad we re-recorded this because I mean, what the hell? So, okay, you got me. You got to talk a little more. This is good. You opened up a can of worms. So this is.
I'm not going to go into full detail. Of this
I know.
story,
I know. I don't want names. I don't want any of that. I'm just. My point is that tells you right now the JW organization is still influencing you in a negative way. You can't even really express yourself without affecting people you love. You're not dating someone you just dating a date. I suspect that you love this person, and this makes me really, really wish. Like, I'd like to know what he thinks. I don't need names, and they could probably. My point is, he wants you to come back. No, who doesn't? That's a JW, of course. They all want you to come back, and that's his real intention. That's his real desire, but. Him knowing that you're not coming back, or does he not know that?
You mean his dad?
Yes.
So I didn't know his dad until I think we had been dating like a couple months, and we met briefly. And his dad's an elder, and I just immediately felt weird, like this dominant male presence of like, you don't know what you're doing, kind of thing.
Patriarchal.
You should bring my son back into the religion too, kind of setting that path for me of like, this is what you should do. And I just went home, we went back, and I was like, I don't want to speak to your family again. I don't want to be around them. It makes me feel weird. And
how does that work in your current relationship with him? Like, if you don't mind.
He's not really close to them. He's like, they talk. He was never baptized, so that door is a little bit still open for him. But he's been very supportive, of my YouTube videos. I'm like, aren't you nervous? Like, if your parents were to see these somehow, does that make you nervous of would they cut off contact with you? And he's like, no, I support what you're doing. I love what you're doing, And so that kind of relaxes me of, I have the support of the person I love, and that has also been through kind of the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, his story is really crazy. Maybe I can get him on here one day for you.
I'd love to talk with him. I'm very open to talking to him. Yeah. And it just shocks me because I have a similar with my family, though. It's no matter what we talk, we're close. But when it comes to the topic of religion, mom's like, we're not talking about that because you know where I stand, Eric. And I totally know where you stand. And I don't care to. I mean, if you don't want to, I'm not here to force a lifestyle on what you should believe. I'm not the JWs, you know what I'm saying? So I really appreciate you poking into your personal life on that level to express and point out just how strange it is. Now, why did you pick a JW family
I know, really though, because he had left way before I did, years before I did, and we met after we both left through a mutual friend. And it's just funny where life takes you. But it's really great to have a partner that understands my dictionary, understands what I'm going through, knows who I'm talking about. It's really, we grew up 2 hours away from each other. So
you broke up for a second. I think Satan came back. Oh, you're back. There you go.
We're overpowering him.
Okay, so where were you? You were saying something about, he understands you, and you were going on.
It's just really nice to have that sort of dynamic of we come from the same place.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I got to ask you about the truth. Okay. The truth about the truth.
Yeah.
What we talked about this before, and you're just kind of burnt out. You're just tired, right? So you haven't really like, I'm going to do this full thorough uncovering and disclosing of what this church has done and the lies they've told and all that. You don't know all the ins and outs of these things, but I'm sure you came across some stuff. And was there anything that stood out to you that just made you like, I just cannot think, this just doesn't seem true to me?
Of teachings?
Yeah.
I think like one of the biggest ones is just plain out blood transfusions. It's disturbing how many kids have died because of this doctrine, or how many mothers in birth, like things like that, how disturbing it is. And even though the likelihood of that happening to me in my life, or maybe a future kid, is low, it's still there, and I don't support it, and I don't believe in it. And if you take the blood transfusion, you are shunned like in that moment when you take it. And it's just kind of ridiculous. And diving into the research of that scripture years ago, I was like, this is just so messed up.
It's nothing to do with a blood transfusion, though. That's
nothing at all. And so when one card falls, they all fall, in my opinion. And even if it was just that one thing, which it's not, of things that are just flat out wrong about the religion, it's a very important one that people don't think about a lot. I mean, you carry around as a witness a no blood card, to where if you were in a car wreck or someone were to find you somewhere and you needed one, that card tells them, no, I would rather die. And that's something all witnesses have to carry around with them.
Oh,
like in their wallet. Yeah. And I took mine out when I was a teenager because I just, and just be like, oh, I don't know where it is.
All right. This is a good question to ask then.
Yeah.
If you got hit by a car or something happened and you were in the hospital and they said, your parents' last name's not the same as yours, by the way. We'll end up covering that one in just a second. There's so much we can cover. What do you think your mom and dad were, either side, your parents, you're laying on this stretcher in the hospital and they say, look, she's unconscious. She's in the coma. We have to do a blood transfusion or she's dead. What do you think they're going to say?
That's a really tough one because a lot of witnesses have never been put in that position, and they think in the moment that they would be able to have the courage to be like, well, let them go, pull the plug. But I think a lot of people would end up doing it. But I don't know about my parents. I can't answer that, I guess. Yeah. We've never really had a serious conversation about it either. But it's just kind of assumed like, yeah, I mean, that's what you're signing up for. But as a kid, like I was baptized at 15, 16. I don't really understand the concept of how big of a decision that was at that age. Some kids get baptized as early as 8. And that's just, there should be an age requirement, definitely, for membership, which basically baptism is basically your membership to being a witness. And there needs to be some sort of regulation of children laws and children protection laws of let them decide when they're older. If you really believe that this is all it, just let them go through life, Yeah.
They do infant baptism in like Catholic,
Yeah.
Yeah, infants, little tiny little dunks.
JW, you go through like 3 interviews. Yeah.
Interesting.
But you're allowed to have like your notes. Like they ask you all these questions that you have to answer correctly about the Bible. And it's like 3 sessions.
And you passed, obviously.
I did pass. I had a lot of notes in front of me.
So, Miss Summers, if I may, where did this name come from and what happened? Why did you change it?
Yeah, so I had always been thinking it was a cool idea to change your last name. There's a girl that helped me on YouTube, like when early teenage years, and she changed her last name maybe when I was like 16 or something. I was like, that is so cool. Like we can literally become whoever we want to become. Like that's awesome. And I was like, man, like I don't think I'll ever be able to do that because I'm so involved with my family and, it'd be a very offensive thing to do. But then when I left, I kind of started playing with the idea, and I'm part of I like to write. I do poetry, that kind of thing. I'm part of a writers group on Facebook. And sometimes we'll do like, hey, what's a good name for a character in this situation? And I kind of described who I am and what I was going through in life, but kind of as a character. And they had no clue about it. was like, what would be like a good last name? And there were like 100 comments, and someone said Summers, and I fell in love with it. I love warmth. I lived in Mexico. Like that, just summer's my favorite season. I feel like I am in the summer of my life. I'm kind of getting out of that spring. I'm going into a new season of my life, and I want to be fully present in there and be who I am. And no matter what, my mom asked me, she sent me a message on Facebook last year. I was like, hey, like, why did you change your last name? And it wasn't her last name, so I don't think she cared as much, but she was interested. And I told her, I was like, you know what? If I ever get married one day, I'm not going to take his last name. I'm like, which I'm sure you can understand because you've been divorced a couple times. You know, I just want to be who I am and have that person accept that. And so, yeah, I changed it to Cheyanne Summers.
That's pretty cool. That's a cool last name. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, you're in the summer of your life, but you're in the winter right now. Hold on.
Yes.
Let's POMO this thing. You're physically in the winter, but you're mentally in the summer. Okay.
Always mentally in the summer.
That's good. That's good.
Summer beach baby for sure.
For sure. Okay. Final question. And I think this, because we could go on, and we're definitely going to want to do more.
We could go on forever.
We can.
Yeah.
Say someone is they're scared. They're not sure what's on the other side. They really want your honest from your heart, you know, what is out there. And you know, they really they're curious. They want to know what's up. You know, is the world out there really what they say it is? Is it how is that a lie from the JWs to you? You know what I mean? Maybe you can, you're speaking to them right now, and they're wondering, and they're doubting this whole organization. They really want to know if there's a better life.
I very much believe in the law of attraction, right? If I'm looking for good, I will receive good. And I know that's not always the case with, you know, random things that happen in life. I'm not one of those people that thinks everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that. But I do believe that what we put out there and what I see the world as is what it will become. If I try to reach out to authentic people and connect and meet people that are doing great things with their lives, that are very sweet, hospitable, I will meet those people. And I have. And, you know, as a JW, you're told no one will show you love or hospitality. You're a stranger. You know, you have nothing to offer this world, and they have nothing to offer you. Such a lie. Such a lie. I've been culturally blessed with amazing friends with all sorts of different backgrounds, beliefs. And as a witness too, everyone comes from a different background, but they filter each other to become a type. And it's okay if you don't fit into that type, just figure out who you are. And one of my favorite quotes from Glennon Doyle, she has a really great book called Untamed. I think every person should read it. She says, who was I before I became what the world told me to be? And I think our life journey is discovering that. And if you are inside a religion that is telling you and teaching you and indoctrinating you from the beginning, adding on to what the whole world teaches you, you know, you can't do that, and you can't grow, and you can't become, you can't evolve. So if you want to evolve and you feel like life is pulling you elsewhere, trust your gut feeling. Trust the timing of it. Be gracious to yourself. I went through an emotional roller coaster. I've been wanting to post my story for years, but I think now is the time where I'm really ready to explain it in a way that I'm not too emotional about it, and that I can give the best advice that I can.
Wow. Really, really well put. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys go down in the description, check out our YouTube channel, like her videos, comment on there, hit that subscribe, hit the bell, the little ding, and you'll get notified when she drops another video. I encourage you to keep going, Cheyanne. That is really powerful. What you're doing is important. There's a huge community of very tight ex-JWs.
Yeah, there is for sure.
This is more fuel for the fire, and I really do appreciate you coming in and expressing all that and going into great depth and telling some personal information. And I mean, just being real, you know?
Yeah, thanks for giving me that space too.
Of course.
I think we dived into some more things today, which I'm glad we did. It worked out good.
Yeah, it worked out really good. And I know for a fact that this is going to help somebody out there for sure. So thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, look, help us out. You can help us here at MythVision, become a patron. You can help out one-time donation if you want on PayPal. There's so many options. Go join our social media platforms, you name it. Got the Discord, all that good stuff. But most of all, never ever forget that we are MythVision.